Many South Africans have asked the question, is Panama the best opponent in preparing for the upcoming World Cup for Bafana Bafana? The truth is, Hugo Broos sort of shot Safa in the foot with his honest style of doing press conferences where, in trying to explain why Panama was the best possible explanation, he sort of let out a little secret we didn't know. And I'm sure Danny Jordan could be sitting at home thinking, I wish they didn't know and I wish he hadn't mentioned it. That's the fact that Bafana Bafana had an offer from Brazil to play Brazil ahead of the World Cup as a preparation match, a friendly match. And the truth is, Bafana Bafana and Safa couldn't afford it. So, Hugo Broos went on to also mention that Argentina, world champions, Lionel Messi, were also amongst those that were looking to play against South Africa and offered themselves to play against South Africa. And once again, the reason why we're not playing Argentina is pretty straightforward and simple to understand. Safa don't have the money. And Hugo Broos obviously received these news from Safa, accepted them, and accepts the situation he finds himself in preparing his squad for the World Cup. Then, Panama was what came up, and Hugo Broos has said, even before we knew Panama was going to be our opponent in this international window, said many a times, going back to last year, that he wants in his preparation to play against teams that are similar in playing styles to the teams we're going to be playing at the World Cup. Now, first thing we all remember is that we play against Mexico. 2010 Mexico. Opening match in the 2010 FIFA World Cup. Opening match to this upcoming World Cup. Mexico is from the CONCACAF region. And guess what? As is Panama. CONCACAF region, exactly what Hugo Broos wanted a year ago, before he knew about Brazil or Argentina. So that falls in line with what he wanted in preparation for the, World Cup. The only question is, do we have to play Panama twice? And again, it comes back down to finances. Do we have the finances to play anybody else that matches the likes of Korea, who's in our group? And the answer is no, not right now. Maybe in May, Safa will be able to organize a match that will please us South Africans and please Hugo Broos in the way of his qualifiers. Now, let's look at Panama and look at why I believe Panama is just the right opponent. Why I believe many South Africans shouldn't be shocked. Not as to say we're going to lose, but should Panama chow us, many South Africans shouldn't be shocked. So, hello. Welcome to the Sizwe Mabena show on Omni Audio Africa. Remember to share, like, and subscribe. And let's go into Panama. Firstly, look at the bigger picture. How they've done in the World Cup, how they've done in the CONCACAF region, how they've done in Copa America. So, in as far as World Cups, they've qualified twice, 2018 and 2026. So, of the last three World Cups, they've qualified for two of them. 2018, they didn't get out of the group stage. This is just their second World Cup. I say that, and that's important because when you consider the fact that we haven't qualified for a World Cup as South Africa since 2002, it means in recent years, they've been doing better than we have on the world stage. In the CONCACAF Championship, the Gold Cup, as we know it, the best results, 2005, where they were runners-up. Runners-up again in 2013. Runners-up again in 2023. That's important because 2023 is closer to 2026, which is the year we're in now. Meaning the generation that finished as runners-up in the CONCACAF Gold Cup is quite possibly the same generation that we're playing against now, that's going to this World Cup. Again, when you keep things moving along and you look at the CONCACAF Nations League, in 2025, which is just last year, they finished runners-up. Again, same generation as the generation we're playing now. And that means this current generation is in good nick. And lastly, when you look at Copa America now, involving all of South America, their best result, again, they've only gone there twice, but their best result was in 2024. Just a couple of years ago, where they got out of the group stages and got up to the quarterfinals, meaning this current generation is part of that team as well. So over the last 3-4 years, including the fact that they, in 2018, made the FIFA World Cup out in Russia, it means this is a nation that's been growing in the right direction and doing better than us on the international stage, one could argue. So let's look at the CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers, the last phase of the World Cup qualifiers, which was the third phase, and they, of course, were in Group A. Finished first in that group ahead of Suriname. Excuse my pronunciation. Until I did this exercise, I'd never known there was a country called Suriname before. So with football, you always learn of new countries. Again, Guatemala finished third in the group and El Salvador finished fourth. But here's the interesting thing. Played 3, won or drew 3, never lost a match. They scored 9 goals and conceded 4 in 6 matches, which, well, encourages goals from our point of view. But also, they are scoring goals and should be an exciting side to watch from that point of view. So, in qualifying, never dropped a point in the 6 matches they played in the last stage of qualifiers. And the next possible question, as we move things along, is their coach. Who is he? And he's a man who's of Spanish citizenship and Denmark. Keep in mind, he was born in Denmark, moved to Spain as a young footballer. He was a footballer in his time, a forward, and has been with Panama since the year 2020. So by 2026, he's a man who's been in charge of the national team for 6 years. That's longer than Hugo Broos, who's matched Clive Barker's record as the longest-serving South African coach. So here's a guy that's been in charge from 2020. We're now in 2026, so there's longevity there. Now, the question you want to ask yourself is, let's look at his coaching career in the past, that being Thomas Christensen. And again, you'll notice he's coached clubs such as Al Jazeera in the past. Upwell Nicosia is of interest. We'll see why in a little bit. Also Leeds for about 6 months out in England. And, of course, Panama. But right at the top, you'll see it says Panama under 23. And this is quite interesting because that means in 2024, he got to work with the under 23s, which are part of the current generation now, for a couple of matches, and got to look into the youngsters that, of course, by now, 2026 would be fitted into the squad or infused into the squad in freshening up the squad. So clearly, Panama have had a long-term vision that includes him looking at the youngsters as well and longevity in ensuring that they keep things moving along. Now, as far as his career and moving things along, you have to ask yourself, for Thomas Christensen, has he won any silverware? The truth is, I mentioned Upwell Nicosia a little bit earlier when we looked at the clubs he'd worked for or the countries he'd worked for, and he did win the league out in Cyprus on one occasion. That was back in the 16-17 season. So that's the one trophy, it matters, because he has that silverware. So it gives experience in that regard, although it is from a club point of view. Now, when you keep things moving along and you look at Panama's fixtures coming up, it's interesting because we South Africa are a bit sore. We're a bit hurt that Brazil, you know how we love, we love everything about Brazil. When it comes to football, we've got a team right now that's the current South African champions known as the Brazilians, of course, Mamelodi Sundowns. We want to play Brazil any time of day. And, well, the next 2 fixtures for Panama, of course, are South Africa on Friday. And let's not forget South Africa again on Tuesday out in Cape Town. And in May, they already have their next fixture lined up. We don't know yet who will be playing in May in the transfer window. And guess who they're playing? Brazil. So whilst we have passed up in a couple of chances to play either Brazil or Argentina, for Panama, in their preparations for the World Cup, they've got Brazil. Now, let's move things along. Look at the countries Panama will be playing in the World Cup. Now, you'll understand why they're playing us. One of the African teams that did qualify for the World Cup is Ghana, and Ghana is in what's an extremely tough group for Panama. That's going to be their first fixture to the World Cup. They follow that up with a game against Croatia. Again, doesn't get any easier, does it? Last game is mighty England, the inventors of the beautiful game that we all love worldwide. And again, question marks as to whether Panama will be strong enough to get through this group. They probably look at the Ghana game, that first game, and feel maybe our best chance at 3 points is there. So if they get the 3 points, it will stand them in good stead against the likes of Croatia and England, where they might just drop points. So that's how their World Cup fixtures look for now. Again, they'll be looking to get out the group stages for the first time in their careers, so that good start will be quite crucial for them. Now, let's keep things moving along. And things get interesting when you look at who they played last year, the number of games they played last year, and also who they played this year. They've already had 2 friendlies early this year. If you look at the top of the page, they played against Mexico last on the 23rd of January, a game they lost by 1-0. They haven't won a game so far this year. They also played against Bolivia, a game they drew with a 1-1 scoreline. But it's in the World Cup qualifiers I'd like to bring your attention to now. Again, we mentioned earlier, they hadn't lost a game in the World Cup qualifiers. But look at when the qualifiers took place last year. They took place between September and November. So in those few months, they played 6 games in the third phase of qualifiers for the CONCACAF region, right? In those 6 games, there's the draw against Suriname. Again, excuse my pronunciation. They drew against Guatemala, right at the bottom of the page, 1-1. They beat El Salvador. That's when things started to turn around. 1-0 scoreline. They drew again against Suriname. And then the 5-goal thriller against Guatemala. The 3-0 win against El Salvador. Great qualifying campaign where they didn't lose and they ended the year on a positive note. And they've just started this year, 2026, on a bit of a low note, considering they lost against Bolivia and Mexico, as mentioned earlier. But you have to ask yourself now, what happened to Panama before September in the year 2025? I'll tell you what, they were busy. Doing what? Playing a lot of international football. Let's move the page then, too, and look at the year 2025 up to about July. And it makes for interesting reading. Now, if you look at right at the bottom of the page, the first game of the year was in January 25th of last year. They lost that 2-1. The next game was against Chile, where Allende is from. They lost that 6-1. And those were friendly internationals, so it's all good there. Then they had the CONCACAF Nations League, right, where they played against USA. Now, ask yourself, if Bafana Bafana were to play against USA today, do you think we'd beat them? Yes, we think we should beat them, but do you honestly think we'd beat them? I think the jury's out on that one. Panama did beat the USA. Then they played Mexico again, whom we play in the near future, lost 2-1, right? That was in the CONCACAF Nations League, right? Then they had the World Cup qualifiers, the second stage, the stage before the very last stage, of course, in qualifiers. They beat Belize 2-0. They beat Nicaragua 3-0. All of these matches happening between January and around May, June, July. After that, they played in the Gold Cup. They beat Guadalupe 5-2. They beat Guatemala 1-0. They beat Jamaica 4-1 and ended that run before the last phase of qualifiers with the last 200 Honduras. Look at how busy they were in the year 2025. All of these matches, and still another 6 matches to end off the year, means they were extremely busy, and they will use those matches as part of preparations for, of course, the World Cup, including the matches they played already early this year, the 2 matches against South Africa now, and the match against Brazil. So part of 2025 for them goes a long way in preparing them for this World Cup. The preparations have already started last year. Now, that's Panama. A short look at Panama, a short look at the last year that they've had, that they qualifiers, how they qualified, their history on the whole, and of course the fact that they are from the CONCACAF region, where Mexico is from. They played Mexico on a couple of occasions in the last 2 years, of course, preparing in competitions such as the CONCACAF Nations League. They've also ensured that they end their preparations for the World Cup in the best way possible. That's in a match against Brazil. Now, having looked at all of these and consider they're ranked 30th in the world, we're still way back in the 60s. Do you believe, honestly, that CONCACAF or these CONCACAF representatives waste the time for Bafana Bafana? I tell you what, Hugo Bruce knows more than I do when it comes to the game of football and what his side needs to prepare for the World Cup. He believes a nation like this is perfect in getting us ready for that first match. In fact, so much so that we're playing them twice because of circumstances around SAFA. Again, that's got nothing to do with Hugo Bruce, and it's something we all have to deal with. But thinking back to the 2010 FIFA World Cup, all of us remember Philip is here, right? It was Philippi is here. That was the slogan. And all of it came down to whether we could beat Mexico in that first game. Shaba scores the first goal. We all jump up and down, and Mexico score an equalizer. It was a thoroughly entertaining game. And when you consider the fact that we beat France, had we been able to beat Mexico in that opening game, it could have changed things in how that World Cup fared for South Africa, and we could have possibly gotten out of the group stages. We haven't been to a World Cup since. Here we are back amongst the very best the world has to offer. Who's our first opponent? The hosts. Who's those hosts? Mexico. And how nice would it be for us South Africans to give them a much worse feeling than they gave us? Yes, when they scored the equalizer, it hurt all South Africans. But how nice could it be if after these 2 matches against Panama, we do have the right sort of feel of the type of physical encounter we could experience against Mexico, the type of play and playing style we could face against Mexico, and come up with a win that will, make sure Mexico, the host, get off to the worst possible start in the World Cup, and that South Africa get off to the best possible starts. I believe this Panama nation, footballing nation, which is maybe little known to us South Africans, is one that will give us a good run for our money, one that's the perfect test when you think of our opening game in that World Cup. I hope Hugo Bruce uses the time wisely. I hope the boys take it seriously. And should Panama punch us in the mouth and chow us, I hope you're not too harsh, because there's still preparations for Hugo Broos and his team ahead of that World Cup. And should we chow Panama, I hope we don't look lightly on the situation and think, Hugo Broos, yeah, but it's just Panama. What's in Panama except the Panama Canal?